Welcome into Sports Nightcap, everybody. I hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun. We got a good bit to get to this week. I know it's kind of an off week for sports, kind of the doldrums of summer. NBA is over, NBA draft is over, NFL, really the preseason doesn't really start for a couple of weeks. But when July hits, it's the most exciting time because you start the fiscal year for the next year for college sports. Things are almost about to be in full swing for NFL training camp. You're in the middle of baseball, the heart of summer. A lot of fun things to get to. So we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. So some of the things we're going to get into, and of course, WNBA season is still going on. And apparently, I got a lot of haters in the WNBA right now because I have this really bad problem with being objective about Caitlin Clark. I'm not a Caitlin Clark hater. I have a lot of belief in Caitlin Clark's potential, but my critique of the way she has played this year has generated a lot of irrational hate. And I'm being me, I'm going to double down on that today because that's just what I do. But beyond Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese, which is what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about LeBron, Kevin Durant, Paul Pierce, and Michael Jordan. And that's about who is the best scorer in NBA history. Because there's a big debate that came out because LeBron talked about Kevin Durant being the best scorer. Paul Pierce inserted himself into the debate. Silliness when he did that. But then came the argument that how does anybody belong above Michael Jordan? I'm going to get into that also. And also, finally, Joey Chestnut. Kind of an interesting point. Joey Chestnut had the best performance he's ever had in the hot dog eating contest. And now we have to ask, is Joey Chestnut the most is he the most successful individual athlete of any sport? Yeah, that's kind of a crazy thing to say because he is a hot dog eating contest guy. But he just continues to win. He missed last year's 4th of July contest and he came back this year to just win again. And for those who don't know, Joey Chestnut has won every year since 2016, except last year when he didn't compete. So we're going to have to start asking if Joey Chestnut is the most dominant athlete in the history of individual sports. Again, the hot dog eating contest guy, you can't deny that. But we start with a little bit of fun here. First, hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. We got a lot to talk about. Tell a friend. We're building something great at Sports Nightcap. We want you to be a part of it. And we dive in with LeBron James talking about Kevin Durant and how Michael Jordan fits into this. So, in a recent episode of the Mind the Game podcast, LeBron James touted Kevin Durant as the best scorer, implied he's the best scorer of all time. His exact quote was, "We haven't had a scorer as equipped as KD as our league." And he said he emphasized Durant's ability to score from all 3 levels of the game. And he said, quote, "Like, you're going to have those nights for sure. But the majority of the season, like being efficient, it's sometimes I've always prided myself on." And he pointed out how Kevin Durant consistently, no matter how bad his nights were, where he was a great elite scorer. Then, to make matters entertaining, Paul Pierce, because Paul Pierce has to insert himself into everything, decided to get involved and take the wild take that he's the best pure scorer ever. And his exact quote was, "I was probably the best pure scorer in the history of the NBA." And he was saying that in response to being upset at LeBron for calling Kevin Durant the most equipped scorer in the history of the NBA. Now, let's talk about the stupidity of what Paul Pierce said for a minute, okay? Let's look at his career. Paul Pierce averaged 19.7 points per game for his career. He had a field goal percentage of .445, a three-point percentage of .368, a free throw percentage of 80.6, a true shooting percentage of 56.8. Just so you guys just so you guys can hear this, and I want to say this now, LeBron has a better true shooting percentage than Paul Pierce at 590. Okay. Paul Pierce at the same time has a 13.2 turnover ratio and averaged 2.6 turnovers per game. Now, I want to point this out with the turnovers. That's really impressive. That's his most impressive stat. That he could average that many points and be that effective and be a leading scorer for so many years and average only 2.6 turnovers per game. I'm going to get into that in a minute on what's so impressive about that. But Paul Pierce doing that is really impressive. But he's not the best pure scorer to ever play the game. Not even close, okay? His true shooting percentage is nowhere near that. His points per game, his total points, none of these are anywhere near what he's talking about. He's not one of the best pure scorers to ever play the game. That's delusional. That's Paul Pierce being Paul Pierce. It's kind of hilarious and ridiculous to talk about. However, what about LeBron's claim when it comes to Kevin Durant? Kevin Durant, to his credit, has a 620 career true shooting percentage. And that is indeed better, by the way, than Michael Jordan's or LeBron's career true shooting percentages. However, LeBron is selling himself short when he talks Kevin Durant. And you have to wonder if he's selling himself short because he'd rather sell himself short to sell MJ short than the other way around. And the reason I bring that up is I have a hunch in my mind that LeBron would not do this if it wasn't a way to demean MJ. Because LeBron himself is a better scorer than Kevin Durant, funny enough, in certain ways, okay? Now, Kevin Durant does have a better turnover percentage than LeBron, but LeBron actually, believe it or not, averages fewer turnovers than Kevin Durant. It's 3.7 per game to 3.5. I get where LeBron's coming from, but here's the problem with scoring. A lot of people today in the era of analytics, and this is the fall of analytics, and I believe in analytics, but if you're going to do analytics, you have to tell the full story. LeBron and a lot of people look at true shooting percentage to determine the best scorer. True shooting percentage doesn't determine the best scorer, doesn't determine the best shooter. It determines who was the best with their shot selection combined with the best at making shots at the same time. One of the reasons LeBron has such a higher true shooting percentage than Michael Jordan, and he does, LeBron's is 590, Michael Jordan's, to his credit, is 569, is that LeBron plays in an era that values analytics, which understands the mid-range is not worth it, so you might as well take the three or go in for the layup. Michael Jordan didn't play in that era. He took a lot more low percentage shots. Kevin Durant does play in that era. That helps Kevin Durant's true shooting percentage and LeBron's true shooting percentage over Michael Jordan's. But see, here's the crazy part. Michael Jordan's offensive win shares and offensive box plus minus are, believe it or not, better. Yes. Let me say this again. Better than Kevin Durant's. And his offensive box plus minus is better than LeBron's. And LeBron's is only better for offensive win shares because he's played longer. Okay? Why is that relevant? Because of the most underrated stat. Even though Michael Jordan played in an era that didn't even value analytics, this stat proves that he's better than LeBron to this day, offensively and overall. Turnovers. That's right, turnovers. On paper, LeBron would seem... Let's talk about the narrative for a minute with Michael Jordan and LeBron James. The narrative of Michael Jordan versus LeBron James is that LeBron James is better at accruing the individual stats and individual accolades, while Michael Jordan is the better winner. That's a dumb narrative, and anybody who makes that narrative is actually going to bolster LeBron's point because it's so easy to dismantle it. The proper narrative to set if you are a Michael Jordan fan, is Michael Jordan's individual numbers and accolades are actually better than LeBron's when you fully break it down. And what do I mean by that? Michael Jordan has a higher PR and better overall analytics than LeBron. Now, how does Michael Jordan have better analytics than LeBron than when LeBron has averaged more assists per game, more rebounds a game, and also a higher true shooting percentage per game, indicating that he's a better scorer? There's one stat that makes the difference. It's turnovers. Michael Jordan averaged 2.7 turnovers per game for his career. LeBron averaged more than three turnovers per his career. He's averaged 3.5 turnovers per his career. Michael Jordan is one of the best players in history at taking care of the basketball. He's got the lowest turnover percentage of any player, averaging 4 assists per game or more, with a minimum of 500 games played. He has 14 40-point games with 0 turnovers. Nobody else has more than 6. He has the fewest turnovers per game on record of anybody in the top 30 in points per game all time. Michael Jordan's most underrated, most unique, and best stat was the fact that he took care of the basketball better than anybody for his time. To average 2.7 turnovers per game with his usage rate, which is second most all time, only to Luka Doncic, who hasn't finished his career yet, is insane. He has the second highest usage rate of all time and the 39th best turnover percentage. None of the known GOATs in NBA history are even in the top 250 in turnover percentage. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kevin Durant, Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain, Steph Curry, all of them are outside of the top 250 in turnover percentage, and Michael Jordan's number 39. Kobe, to his credit, is number 159. Tim Duncan is number 247. But that's an insane stat for Michael Jordan, that he could be that good at taking care of the basketball when he was that responsible for scoring that many buckets and held the ball so often for his offense. That's why I say if Paul Pierce is going to check LeBron, it shouldn't be about LeBron versus Kevin Durant. It should be everybody else versus Michael Jordan, because part of being a great scorer is taking care of the basketball. And Michael Jordan was better at that than anybody ever. He has the best in history at taking care of the basketball, and the data proves it. Moving on, speaking of turnovers, skewing a player's success, Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. I got a lot of haters right now, guys. I got a lot of people who genuinely don't like me. Why do a lot of people genuinely don't like me? It's because I've been objective about Caitlin Clark. I have committed the cardinal sin of not proclaiming Caitlin Clark the greatest professional team sports athlete in the history of team sports this year, okay? Well, I'm sorry. She's not. Now, Caitlin Clark has a lot of potential. Again, I want to insist this. I want to say up front, I think Caitlin Clark could end up being a great player. She is dealing with an injury right now. I'm glad the Fever have set her out the last 2 games, because one of the things that has hurt her is she has not been fully healthy. But I'm not the only person here who has criticized Caitlin Clark from a position of bias. Skip Bayless, who's been driving the Caitlin Clark chain for a while, has been accurately pointing out that she has gone ice cold from 3. She was 1 of 23 up until this week at a point from 3 in her previous few games. She has been wildly inefficient, okay? Wildly inefficient. And we have to point out that while Caitlin Clark made a splash her rookie year because of her injuries, and yes, it is injury related, she has massively regressed this year. More importantly, Caitlin Clark's rookie year was not even as impressive as what Paige Beckers is doing this year. Okay, we got to point that out. Caitlin Clark is a very good player, could be a great player, and in the right circumstance could go down as the greatest player of all time. But she's nothing great right now. She's good. So why is this relevant? I've already made my point about Caitlin Clark. Well, this week, the Chicago Sky, unfortunately for them, lost a couple more games. They lost to the Minnesota Lynx. They lost to the Golden State Valkyries. And in between, they did beat the Sparks 92-85. However, Angel Reese, who I'm not the biggest fan of, has somewhat found her footing. With Chicago this past weekend, she had 16 points, 17 rebounds, 6 assists, a block, but she did have 6 turnovers. Angel Reese is still a problem. She still has a lot of issues that she needs to fix. At the same time, as of their second years in the NBA, it's not even a debate. Angel Reese is a better player than Caitlin Clark right now. Now, Caitlin Clark's injury has a lot to do with that. I think fully healthy, I would still take Caitlin Clark. I said 3 weeks ago, while Caitlin Clark's not great, Angel Reese isn't even good. Angel Reese has had a big improvement in her game the last 2 weeks. A gigantic improvement. Now, she's averaging 12.4 points per game, 12.6 rebounds per game, more than half a block per game. And most importantly, her true shooting percentage is up all the way to .493. Guess what? Caitlin Clark's true shooting percentage is .520. Now, that may seem like Caitlin Clark has the advantage, but when you consider Angel Reese's defense, all of a sudden, you're looking at a different player when it comes to Angel Reese. You're looking at somebody whose steals percentage is 2.9, her block percentage is 1.8. Caitlin Clark's steals percentage is 2.4, block percentage is still 1.8, to be fair. Total rebound percentage is 9.1 for Caitlin Clark, though. Total rebound percentage for Angel Reese is 23.6. And most importantly, Caitlin Clark's turnover percentage is 21.4 because she is averaging. Caitlin Clark's turnover percentage is not 21.4. I got that stat wrong. Caitlin Clark's turnover percentage is something significantly worse. It is 25.2 because she is averaging 5.9 turnovers per game, whereas Angel Reese's is 21.4. Still not good, by the way. And she is averaging 3.4 turnovers per game. Angel Reese has a higher PER than Caitlin Clark. She has a higher, as of right now, win shares count than Caitlin Clark. And she has a higher win shares per 48 minutes than Caitlin Clark. Now, again, Caitlin Clark has been hurt. That's the biggest reason for this. All things being equal, I would take Caitlin Clark over Angel Reese, and I wouldn't even think about it. I've told you guys this before, and I'll say it again. Caitlin Clark is good, not yet great. Angel Reese is not yet even good. But Angel Reese has taken a step forward over the past 2 to 3 weeks, and I think in the process, she has surpassed Caitlin Clark for now. Will it last? I don't think I don't think it will. But Chicago put up a really big fight against the Minnesota Lynx on Sunday. They lost 80-75. This is why I'm bringing this up, because Chicago put up a huge fight against the Lynx. Minnesota has the best record in the NBA, far and away, at 17-2. And Ephesian Collier is the best player in the NBA. There's no close second, by the way, to her. And when you take that into account, it's honestly a really good sign for Chicago that they were able to put up that fight against Minnesota. Angel Reese is getting better. She's becoming more of a legitimate threat and no longer a liability. I still think overall she is not better than Caitlin Clark, but when it comes to just general production for this year, there is absolutely no denying on anybody's front that Angel Reese has been better than Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has significantly regressed. She's significantly regressed. And I think if I'm Indiana at this point, Indiana has pretty much fallen to 9-9 on the year. 70 White's team is going to be lucky to make the Eastern Conference playoffs. If they do, they're not going to go anywhere. I tank. I've been talking about this for a little while. When your star player is hurt, tank. Now, There's obviously the whole story of Michael Jordan not tanking and wanting to come back and helping the Bulls get to the playoffs at 30 and 52, which is kind of crazy to think about in his second year. And it worked out long term because the Bulls came a dynasty. That is such a anomaly. That's such an anomaly that you can't use that as the rule. Okay. And I'm not saying it's an anomaly because Michael Jordan was somehow just that great. It's an anomaly because the Bulls, funny enough, did have Jerry Krause during that time, and Krause, for whatever his flaws were, did make a lot of smart decisions to help Michael Jordan get a ring. People talk about The Last Dance. Michael Jordan helped create a narrative that Jerry Krause held the Bulls back. Truth be told, Jerry Krause built a championship team with the Bulls, even though he didn't draft Michael Jordan. Before Jerry Krause was making draft picks for the Bulls regularly, Michael Jordan was getting bounced out in the first round every year. It took Jerry Krause and his genius of doing things like trading Charles Oakley to get Scottie Pippen that helped the Bulls go win 6 rings. You can hate Jerry Krause all day, and his ego did get the best of him at the end, but Jerry Krause is as much of a reason for the Bulls winning 6 rings as Michael Jordan, because if it wasn't for Jerry Krause, Michael Jordan would have been another player who was elite, stuck in a system of bad players who may have been lucky to get 1 ring. Jerry Krause was the brains behind everybody else, and Michael can take that personally all day long. It doesn't matter. The most unimportant move that Jerry Krause made is the one that Michael Jordan left the Bulls over, which was hiring Phil Jackson. That's the ironic part about this. Phil Jackson had way less to do with those Bulls 6 titles than when Jerry Krause went and traded for Scottie Pippen, or got Horace Grant, or then signed Dennis Rodman, or found Tony Kukoc. All of those moves were more important than hiring Phil Jackson. And it's ironic because Michael Jordan left the Bulls because Jerry Krause was going to fire Phil Jackson, and did fire Phil Jackson effectively at the end of the 97-98 year. But Phil Jackson spun Michael Jordan, conned everybody into believing that he was that necessary, and conned everybody into retirement to save himself, because that's what Phil Jackson does. But at the end of the day, I want to point this out. Jerry Krause had a lot more to do with the success of the Bulls than anybody else outside of Michael Jordan. And I don't even think it's close, honestly. I think if you're ranking people responsible for the Bulls 6 rings, it's Michael Jordan, Jerry Krause. Everybody else is a distant third at that point. Finally, I don't know how many of you enjoy this on the 4th. I do every now and then, but Joey Chestnut returned to the hot dog eating contest after missing last year. He missed 2024 because it was a sponsorship conflict with Impossible Foods. Impossible Foods is a plant-based meat alternative company. Nathan's, the hot dog contest, does not allow competitors to promote rival brands. Joey Chestnut came back this year, and he devoured 70 and a half hot dogs within the 10-minute duration of the contest to win again. Joey Chestnut now has a total of 17 hot dog wins. That's right. 17. The closest male to him is 6. Is Joey Chestnut the most dominant, elite, individual sport athlete of all time? Now, you may or may not consider hot dog eating a sport. I say it involves as much physical gruelingness as driving a freaking car, and we consider NASCAR greats among the greats in all sports. So if you can drive a car to get there, why can't you eat a hot dog? One takes a lot more effort, and Joey Chestnut hitting 70 and a half hot dogs is incredible. For those who don't know, Joey Chestnut has won every single year since 2007, except 2015 and 2024. That's insane. That's an insane dynasty that laps what the Celtics were doing in the 60s. Okay. I I don't know if we really appreciate what Joey Chestnut has been able to do. Now, again, he lost, I said 2016 to 2007 to 2014. He lost in 2015, but then he's won every year since 2016, except for 2024 when he wasn't even allowed to compete. Guys, I got to be honest. What Joey Chestnut's doing is incredible. Now, a few competitors for best individual athlete. You could talk maybe Jack Nicklaus, 18 majors. So Tiger Woods, 15. Tiger Woods has 82 overall tournament wins, high profile tournament wins. So Jack Nicklaus is 73. Not as dominant as Joey Chestnut's, 17-6 overall, again for men. 70-11 if you include one of the women's a different field, a different league than men. Now, tennis. John McEnroe, 155 tennis tournament wins. Closest is 128. Nope, not the same as Chestnut. In terms of tennis majors, Novak Djokovic, 24. Rafael Nadal, 22. Roger Federer, 20. What about women's tennis? Martina Navratilova, 354 overall wins to 189 is the closest, but only 18 majors. She's 18 majors behind. She's only won 18 majors, and she's behind Serena Williams and fourth overall in that. That's got to stand out. NASCAR, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, Jimmy Johnson all have 7. None of them really stand out over the other ones. Michael Phelps in swimming, 28 gold medals. The closest in overall gold medals was 18. The closest swimmer is 14. Michael Phelps has 23 gold medals. The closest is 9. Michael Phelps is more dominant. Now, overall, Joey Chestnut has a higher ratio share of the wins in his field than Michael Phelps does, but Michael Phelps' field is more competitive. I mean, who's entering competitive hot dog eating contest? Okay. And Michael Phelps has been dominant his whole career. Michael Phelps was unstoppable in his prime. 28 gold medals. Nobody else in the Olympics is at 18. And the Olympics is the gold standard, no pun intended, for sports in general. And nobody's within 10 of Michael Phelps as an Olympian in general. And my point is Michael Phelps dominating his sport as a swimmer specifically. As a swimmer, Michael Phelps has 28 gold medals. The closest swimmer, has 28 medals. The closest swimmer overall has 14. Michael Phelps has 23 gold medals. I got to repeat that, 23. The closest is 9. Now, technically, Joey Chestnut has a higher percentage than the second place person to him in the hot dog eating contest. He has 17. He's ahead of 6. He almost has 3 times as many. Michael Phelps certainly has more than 2 times as many, and he's closer to 3 times as many than he has 2 times as many, because 23 to 9 is almost 17-6. And let's just point this out, the level of competition. This is the Olympics. And it comes to swimming. Who is going to make the case that Joey Chestnut has a higher level of competition? That's just ridiculous. And with that in mind, I got to say, Michael Phelps is the most dominant individual sports athlete of all time. But Joey Chestnut's too. Michael Phelps, Joey Chestnut, 1 and 2. Not even close. And I don't know of any sport where somebody else is anywhere near there, unless you count professional wrestling, where Hulk Hogan has dominated the amount of time he held the heavyweight title. But that's stupid because that was fake. And Hulk Hogan is a POS if you look at how he treated his wrestler. So I'm not going there. I think that Joey Chestnut is the second greatest individual athlete of any individual sport in history. And I'm not going to back down from that. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow to talk a little bit more fun. It's the doldrums of summer, but we got some fun debates to have in the process. So hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on, tell a friend. We want Sports Nightcap to be your hub for everything sports talk. Please, again, tell your friends. We want to make this thing grow. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and it's actually having a slow growth, but it's doing well to this point. So I just want to keep seeing that going. And you guys, again, tell your friends. I will be right here, and you can expect me again tomorrow night. I will be there then with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation of Sports Nightcap.